You ever wonder what happens when a billionaire decides to test the honesty of a 6-year-old girl? Not because he's cruel, not because he's bored, but because he's lost faith in people. Thomas Mitchell had everything. At 45, he'd built a company worth hundreds of millions. Skyscrapers carried his name. His face was in magazines. He had power, influence, a life most only dream about, but one betrayal changed everything. His business partner, his friend, stole $3 million, vanished overnight, left Thomas not just robbed but broken. He looked around his empire and asked, "Is there anyone left who won't take advantage? Anyone at all who still does the right thing when no one's watching?" So he set up a test. A simple, silent experiment. He left his office safe wide open. Piles of cash, hundreds of thousands of dollars, stacked in plain sight. More money than most people see in a lifetime. And he sat in his leather armchair, eyes half closed, breathing slow, pretending to be asleep. Waiting. That night, Deanna Jefferson walked in with her daughter, Jasmine. They'd been coming for 2 years. Deanna to clean the executive floor during the night shift, Jasmine tagging along during school holidays. Deanna was quiet, hardworking, never complained. Jasmine, she was 6, bright-eyed. Wore tiny pink gloves her mom bought so she could help while doing homework or coloring quietly in the corner. They didn't know about the test. They didn't know Thomas was watching. And then Jasmine wandered toward the desk. Her little feet padded across the carpet. She saw the open safe. The stacks of money. Thomas held his breath. This was it. Would she reach in, grab a bill, even just touch it? Kids are curious. Money is shiny. Temptation isn't just for adults. But what Jasmine did next froze Thomas in his chair. She didn't take anything. Instead, she frowned. Then, carefully, so carefully, she started organizing the money. She sorted the bills by size, neatened the stacks, smoothed out the corners like she was fixing something sacred. Then she turned to her mom and whispered, "Mommy, Mr. Thomas's money was all messy. I tidied it up, just like you taught me with our coins at home." Deanna spun around, panicked. "Jasmine, you can't touch the boss's things." But the little girl just smiled. "It was messy, Mom. He'll be happy when he wakes up and sees it nice." Thomas felt something he hadn't felt in years. His throat tightened. His chest ached. This child, whose whole life was lived in the shadows of wealth she'd never touch, had just done something no one else in his world had done in a long time. She chose honesty, not because she was scared, not because she wanted praise, but because it was right. And she told her mom, openly, without hesitation, no guilt, no cover-up, just pure, unshakable integrity. Thomas closed his eyes. For the first time in years he believed in something. Not money, not power, but people. But here's what he didn't know yet. That single moment, the quiet act of a child arranging cash she'd never keep, was about to set off a chain of events that would destroy a powerful man, rebuild lives, and prove that the smallest acts of decency can spark the biggest changes. Because Thomas wasn't just moved, he was awakened. And he wasn't going to stay silent. Over the next few weeks, he started watching Deanna and Jasmine more closely. He saw Deanna working double shifts, cleaning his office at night, then rushing to a doctor's clinic in the morning before the sun came up. Jasmine followed her everywhere. Did homework in waiting rooms, played quietly under desks, never complained, and Deanna, she wasn't just raising a child, she was teaching one. He once overheard her say, "We always return what isn't ours, even if no one sees. Our honesty is worth more than any money in the world." That line stayed with him. He looked into her past. She'd grown up in foster care after losing her parents at 9, worked through high school, never made it to college, got pregnant at 22. The father left, And since then, she raised Jasmine alone, refused government help, worked every shift she could find. No excuses, no bitterness, just strength. So Thomas did something quiet. He quietly increased her salary, told HR to mark it as a category adjustment. No announcement, no fanfare, but someone noticed. Richard Blackwood, vice president, 50 years old, son of one of the company's founders, used to getting his way. At a meeting, he spotted the pay bump. "Thomas, why are we wasting extra money on cleaning staff, especially that one?" Thomas kept calm. "Diana is an excellent professional." Richard smirked. "Excellent, come on. Give people like her an extra coin, they'll soon want the whole vault. It's in their nature." Thomas stayed quiet, but inside, a fire lit. Richard wasn't just arrogant, he was prejudiced, and he wasn't done. "And she brings that kid here," Richard added. "This isn't daycare. What kind of mother exposes her child to this? Clearly, no real family structure." Thomas said nothing. But that night he watched from his office as Richard cornered Diana in the hallway. "Listen carefully," Richard said, voice low and threatening. "I know you're getting more money than you deserve. I don't know what kind of favors you're doing, but it stops now." Diana went pale. "Sir, I don't understand." "Of course you don't. People like you never do. You just take what you're given and stay quiet, and get that child out of here." Jasmine hid behind her mom, trembling. Diana held her close. "I'm just doing my job." "Your job is to clean and be invisible." Thomas watched it all, and for the first time in years he felt anger, not for himself, for them. This man had just scared a child, insulted a woman who worked harder than anyone in that building, and he thought he could get away with it, because of his name, because of his title, because he believed some people were less than. But Thomas knew something Richard didn't. The office had security cameras, and they were recording everything, not just that night, every word, every threat, every lie. And Thomas, he wasn't just watching, he was planning, because Richard had just made a fatal mistake. He'd shown his true self. And Thomas Mitchell, he was about to make sure the whole world saw it too. But it wouldn't be fast, it wouldn't be loud, it would be precise, like a surgeon, like a hunter. Because what Richard didn't know, every cruel word, every act of arrogance, every moment he thought he was in control was being recorded, saved, counted. And soon, very soon, each one would be used to take him down, not just from his job, but from everything. Thomas didn't act right away. He didn't storm in, didn't yell, didn't fire anyone. He waited, because he wasn't just angry, he was strategic. And he knew Richard Blackwood wasn't just a bully. He was dangerous. So the next morning, Thomas made a phone call, not to HR, not to legal, to Marcus Chun, former FBI, corporate investigator, the kind of man who finds what others want to stay hidden. They'd worked together during the embezzlement case. Marcus knew the game, knew how power protected itself. "Marcus," Thomas said, "I need your help again." "Trouble?" Marcus asked. "Trouble," Thomas replied. "Institutional racism, abuse of power. I need solid evidence against Richard Blackwood." Marcus laughed. "That daddy's boy should be easier than stealing candy from a baby. Guys like him always leave a trail." And he did. Over the next few days, Marcus dug. Meanwhile, Richard got bolder. Monday morning, he marched into HR with a list of violations against Diana. "She's been late, regularly." Sandra Miller, the HR director, smart by the book in her 40s, frowned. "I'll need to check the records." "Records can be altered," Richard snapped. "I'm the vice president. My word should be enough." Thomas watched it all on camera. The same security system Richard had pushed to monitor productivity was now capturing his lies. And Thomas, he smiled, because Richard didn't know. The cameras weren't just watching employees, they were watching him. Wednesday. Richard crossed a new line. He waited in the parking lot. Deanna arrived with Jasmine, both in their work clothes, heading in for the night shift. Richard blocked her path. "Listen carefully," he said, voice low. "I know you're doing more than cleaning to earn that extra money. What kind of special services are you providing?" Deanna froze. Jasmine clung to her leg. "Mommy, why is that man being mean?" Deanna didn't flinch. "Some adults are unhappy," she said, voice steady, "and they try to make others unhappy too." Richard laughed, cold, cruel. "Unhappy? I've got more in my wallet than you'll see in your whole life." Thomas watched the footage that night, and for the first time in years he felt rage, not blind anger, controlled, focused, deadly. He called Marcus. "Get me everything on him. Emails, calls, social media, past jobs, I want it all." Marcus arrived the next day with a folder. And what was inside? Proof. Richard had a history, 3 lawsuits, all from minority employees, all dropped, no court trial. Why? Because his father paid to make them go away. Pattern, same every time, humiliate, isolate, pressure, until the person quit. No firing, no paper trail, just slow, quiet destruction. And Richard, he moved from company to company, protected by money and privilege. Marcus pointed to a line in the report. "This guy isn't just prejudiced, he's a predator. Uses his title to crush people who can't fight back." Thomas read every page, then he looked up. "I want justice, not revenge." Justice. Thursday. Sandra from HR came to Thomas's office. "Sir, Richard is pushing to fire Deanna, but I can't find any real reason. No tardiness, no complaints, nothing." Thomas stayed calm. "What's he saying?" "He claims she's violating protocol." "But he said people like her shouldn't have access after hours." Thomas locked eyes with her. "You hear the problem?" Sandra nodded. "Yes, discrimination." Thomas leaned forward. "Then open an internal investigation, document everything." That night, Thomas activated Phase 2. He told IT to install additional microphones, in hallways, in private offices, near Richard's favorite spots. Officially, security upgrade. Unofficially, a trap. Friday night. Richard thought he was alone. He made a call. Thomas heard every word. "Dad," Richard said, "that situation with the cleaning lady, she's becoming a problem." A pause. Then, "Yes, the black one, I need you to use your contacts, create some legal trouble, suspicion of theft, fake documentation issues, anything to make her quit." His father's voice came through. "Richard, are you overreacting? She's just a cleaning lady." Richard's answer chilled Thomas's blood. "It's a matter of principle. If we let people like them feel too comfortable, they'll start demanding rights they don't deserve. Better to stop it now, before others get ideas." Thomas recorded it. Every word. Then he smiled, because Richard had just confessed to conspiracy, to racism, to trying to destroy an innocent woman, and he did it on tape. Monday morning, Marcus walked in with more. "Thomas," he said, "you won't believe this." He opened a laptop, private social media posts, closed group chats, Richard and other executives joking about black employees. "Need to keep those monkeys in their place," one post read. "Only way to deal with these people is to show them who's boss from the start." Marcus looked up. "There's more." He used his father's influence to block black candidates at other companies, a 15-year pattern. Thomas stared at the screen, then he said one word, "Perfect." Marcus hesitated. "Wait, there's one more thing. He's planning something this week." Thomas leaned in. "He's going to stage a theft. Plant something expensive in Diana's cart, then catch her, call the police, humiliate her in front of everyone." Thomas felt cold, but not fear, purpose. Because now he had everything. Proof of past crimes, proof of current plans, proof of intent, and most important, he had time. So he did nothing. He let Richard believe he was winning. Let him think no one was watching. Let him walk straight into the trap. Tuesday night, 8 p.m., Diana and Jasmine arrived. Richard had already planted a $15,000 Rolex in the cleaning cart. He stood in his office watching the security feed. "Perfect," he whispered. "Give her 15 minutes, then I'll catch her." What he didn't know, Thomas was upstairs, on high-resolution monitors, watching him. Marcus was in a van in the parking lot, cameras rolling. 3 investigative journalists quietly hired by Thomas waited outside. The net was set. At 8:20, Richard walked into the cleaning area, 2 security guards at his side. "Mrs. Jefferson," he said, fake polite, "need to check your supplies. Reports of missing items." Diana stopped, confused. Richard went straight to the cart, pulled out the watch, held it up like a trophy. "A $15,000 Rolex, missing from Mr. Mitchell's office, found in your cart." Diana turned white. "I've never seen that watch." "Of course not," Richard sneered. "It just appeared, didn't it?" Jasmine stood up. "Mommy, what's happening?" "Be quiet, child," Richard snapped. One guard reached for the phone, calling the police. And that's when the door opened. Thomas walked in, with Marcus and 3 strangers. Richard froze. "Richard," Thomas said, calm, "hang up that phone." "I'm glad you're here," Richard said, forcing confidence. "We caught your employee stealing." Thomas smiled, then laughed. A cold, quiet laugh. "My watch. Richard, I've worn an Apple Watch for 5 years. I've never owned a Rolex." Richard's face twitched. "What?" Thomas stepped forward. "We also have video of you planting that watch 40 minutes ago. Bought it this morning." Receipt in the cart. Marcus held up a tablet. Video played. Richard placing the watch, looking around to make sure no one saw. Clear, undeniable. "Angle 1, Marcus said, swiping. "Angle 2, angle 3. Richard tried to speak. Thomas cut him off. "Oh, but it gets better." Marcus opened a file. Projected it. First, Richard's racist posts. "Need to keep these monkeys in their place." Marcus read it aloud. Diana gasped. Richard lunged toward the screen. Thomas blocked him. Then the call to his father. "Create legal trouble for the cleaning lady. It's a matter of principle." Richard's face went pale. "Where did you get this?" "Security system," Thomas said. "You approved it, remember?" One of the journalists stepped forward. "Jennifer Walsh, Channel 7 News. Mr. Blackwood, care to comment on these accusations of racism and conspiracy?" Richard backed up. Thomas kept going. "We also have your threats in the parking lot, your sexual comments, your attempts to get Diana fired with fake violations." Another journalist stepped in, camera rolling. "Mr. Blackwood, how do you respond to claims you systematically targeted minority employees?" Richard turned to run. Marcus blocked the door. "Oh," Marcus said, smiling. "Your bank account was frozen an hour ago. Your family's been notified. The board has an emergency meeting tomorrow. You're being fired. For cause." Diana finally spoke. "Mr. Mitchell, did you know this would happen?" "I knew he was dangerous," Thomas said, "but I didn't think he'd go this far. When I found out, I decided, no more watching." Jasmine stepped forward, tiny, scared. "Mr. Thomas, will the bad man stop scaring Mommy now?" Thomas knelt. "Sweetheart, he'll never bother you again." Richard tried one last move. "Thomas, we can settle this between gentlemen. My family has shares." Thomas shook his head. "Until 20 minutes ago. The board just voted. All Blackwood shares are being bought out. You've ruined not just your career but your family's fortune." The police arrived. "Richard Blackwood," the detective said. You're under arrest, conspiracy, harassment, racial discrimination, attempted defamation. As they cuffed him, Richard glared at Deanna. This won't stand. My family has influence. Marcus stepped close. Not anymore. The evidence is already in the media. Your father called 2 hours ago, asked to be removed from all company contacts. Reporters surrounded Deanna. Miss Jefferson, how does it feel to be vindicated? She looked at Jasmine. Then Thomas. I feel grateful that someone was willing to fight for justice when it would have been easier to look away. Thomas watched Richard being led out, not to a car, to a cell, not just losing his job, losing everything, reputation, family, future, all gone, because he underestimated 2 things, a mother's dignity and a billionaire's conscience. And then Thomas turned to Deanna. Would you like to talk about a promotion? Deanna didn't speak at first. She just looked at Jasmine, then at Thomas. Tears welled in her eyes, not from shock, from relief. For years, she'd carried the weight of survival on her shoulders. Every shift, every early morning, every late night. She'd raised her daughter in hallways and waiting rooms, on cafeteria leftovers and second-hand clothes. She taught Jasmine honesty, kindness, courage, values that couldn't be bought. And now the man who had silently watched it all was offering more than a raise. He was offering respect. Promotion, Deanna finally asked, voice soft. Thomas nodded. I looked into your background. You started a business degree, had to drop out. She lowered her head. I couldn't afford it. I'm not asking you to start over, Thomas said. I'm asking you to lead. He paused. I'm creating a new role, Director of Human Resources. It's yours if you want it. Silence. Then Jasmine clapped. Loud, joyful, like it was the best news ever. Deanna covered her mouth. A sob escaped. She didn't say yes right away. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. 6 months later, Deanna Jefferson walked through the same office halls, this time in a tailored suit, a nameplate on her door, Director of Human Resources. She didn't just fill the role, she redefined it. Her first move, a scholarship program for employees' children, fully funded, and Jasmine. She became the first recipient. Now 7, she wore a backpack twice her size and ran through the office like it was her second home. Mommy, can I show Mr. Thomas my new drawing? She asked one afternoon, bursting into his office. Thomas smiled as she climbed onto his chair. It was a picture of 3 people holding hands, a tall man, a woman with kind eyes, a little girl in pink gloves, labeled, My Heroes. Thomas felt something warm rise in his chest. This wasn't just a drawing, it was a legacy, and it was just beginning, because Diana's impact spread fast. She overhauled hiring practices, pushed for diversity audits, created mentorship programs. Within a year, Mitchell Enterprises won national awards for inclusion. It became a model. Other companies called asking, how did you do it? Thomas always gave the same answer. We stopped looking at people's backgrounds as limitations. We started seeing them as strength. He launched the Fair Chance program, hiring formerly overlooked talent, single parents, foster care graduates, people rebuilding their lives. Over 200 families benefited in the first 2 years. Meanwhile, Richard Blackwood, he was living in a 1-bedroom apartment. After 18 months in prison for conspiracy and racial discrimination, he was released to a world that no longer wanted him. His name was toxic. His face, recognizable from news reports. He applied for jobs, got rejected. One gas station manager Googled him, saw the headlines, and said, I can't risk it. His wife filed for divorce, took the house. The kids changed their last name. He tried to start over, created a new LinkedIn, posted a clean bio. Within hours, screenshots of his racist messages resurfaced, digital ghosts haunting him. He ended up selling used cars, earned less in a year than Diana made in 3 months. He'd sit alone at night watching old company videos online, saw Diana speaking at conferences, saw Jasmine in a school play, saw Thomas receiving awards, and he'd whisper they were nobody. But they weren't. They were everything, and he'd tried to crush them because of their race, because of their class, because he thought power meant he could, but power without integrity, it's fragile. And it falls. 1 year after the scandal, CNN called. "Mr. Mitchell," said reporter Michael Torres, "we want to do a prime-time story, how your company became a national example of change." The crew filmed everything. Jasmine laughing in the office where she once sat coloring, Diana leading a meeting with confidence and grace, Thomas speaking honestly about what happened. "I lost faith in people," he said on camera, "so I tested one, a 6-year-old girl, and she taught me that honesty isn't rare, it's just often ignored. That night she didn't take money, she organized it. And in that moment she reminded me what really matters." The story aired, millions watched. Richard watched too, from his dim apartment, alone, empty bottle on the table. He saw the life he'd tried to destroy, now thriving, loved, respected, and he realized something: he hadn't just lost his job. He'd lost his place in the world. Because society doesn't forgive men who target the defenseless, especially when justice is served so completely. 3 years later, on Jasmine's 10th birthday, Thomas hosted a party at the new home he'd bought for Diana and her daughter. Big yard, bright balloons, friends, laughter. Midway through, Thomas stood up. "Jasmine Diana Jefferson," he said, smiling, "you changed my life in ways I can never repay." The room quieted. "That's why today I'm announcing the Jasmine Jefferson Educational Fund." Gasps. "It will provide full college scholarships to talented young black students for the next 50 years. Jasmine ran to him, arms wide. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in us when no one else did." Diana hugged them both. Later at dinner, Jasmine looked at Thomas. "Dad, the teacher asked us to write about our heroes. Can I write about you?" Thomas felt tears come. He looked at Diana. "Jasmine," he said gently, "the real hero is your mom. She taught you that honesty is worth more than any amount of money." Diana reached over, took his hand. "No," she said. "The hero is the one who had the courage to act when it would have been easier to stay silent." That moment, simple, quiet, said everything. Because justice wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about destroying Richard. It was about building a company that valued people. Building a future for those who'd been overlooked. Building a legacy where integrity wasn't just praised, it was rewarded. Thomas realized something profound. The best response to hatred isn't more hatred. It's love. It's action. It's creating something so strong, so good, that the darkness doesn't just fade, it becomes irrelevant. He stood on a Harvard stage years later, invited to speak. "Richard tried to bring us down," Thomas said, "but he lifted us higher than we ever dreamed." Today, Jasmine is in prep school, on track for Harvard. Diana has an MBA, speaks at national conferences, is a leader in human resources innovation. And Thomas, honored by the government for transforming corporate culture. As for Richard, he still works odd jobs, still lives alone, still sees his name pop up in business school case studies, not as a cautionary tale about leadership, but about arrogance, about prejudice, about what happens when you mistake power for worth. Because true power, it's not in your title, it's not in your bank account, it's in your choices. And the most powerful choice Thomas ever made, believing in a little girl who tidied up a pile of money instead of taking it. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that one act of honesty can change everything, then do this. Subscribe, because there are more stories like this. Real people, real courage, real change, and they're waiting to be told, because doing good is worth it, even when it seems impossible, especially then. So the next time you think one person can't make a difference, remember Jasmine, a 6-year-old in pink gloves, who saw a mess and chose to fix it. Not for reward, not for praise, just because it was right, and because of that, an empire changed, lives were lifted, a man rediscovered his soul, and a system built on privilege collapsed because of a child's quiet act of integrity, because justice doesn't always come with gavels and courtrooms. Sometimes it comes with tiny hands arranging dollar bills, with a mother's quiet strength, with a billionaire who finally saw what mattered, and if they could change the world from the shadows, then maybe you can too. So hit subscribe, because stories like this, they're not just inspiring. They're proof that decency wins, that courage comes in all sizes, and that the most powerful thing you can ever do is choose to do the right thing, even when no one's watching.